Here's Chuck Schumer. Fire RFK Jr. now. So they're panicked, which means to me that RFK is over the target.
Over the target. That's exactly what it means, Jimmy. And
so now you know what really happened with this faker. I just really wanted to. So this guy, as far as I'm concerned, is a corrupt criminal maniac, anti-science liar. And of course, all the shit libs, as I call them, who don't know, who get their medical advice from people who are funded by Big Pharma. They turn on MSNBC, they turn on CNN, they go to Fox, they go to Wall Street, the Journal, they go to New York Times, Washington, all these places that are funded by Big Pharma to lie to you, like Rolling Stone magazine when they said that you couldn't see an emergency doctor because there were so many ivermectin patients clogging up the emergencies, and that was all a lie. They just made that up. Nobody has to pay a price for that, just like his lies. Nobody has to pay a price for that. And so I want to show you just one more thing. So now that they're coming for Bobby Kennedy, and I want to show you just one more thing. So they also fired this guy, Paul Offit. Now, I've known Paul Offit was a charlatan, liar, corrupt piece of it for a long time. And so I couldn't believe he was still working there. But I just
he's on an advisory committee at the FDA, and he was taken off the advisory committee. He was not renewed, which is great news. He is very biased. He's another pharma tool, essentially.
And here's Callie Means. He's going to give him a dressing down about Paul Offit's lies and conflict of interests.
What's causing distrust in public health authorities is conflict of interest, like Dr. Offit taking millions of dollars from pharmaceutical makers like Merck while approving and recommending pharmaceuticals on ACIP committees. It's the fact that Dr. Offit saying that science is always settled when he himself has approved vaccines that have been recalled for causing organ failure for kids. And it's the fact that Dr. Offit is talking about measles, which is important. And I want to be clear, Pamela, I don't want to get this out. It's important. But there were 300 deaths from measles a year before the invention of the vaccine. We have 38% of children right now having prediabetes. Bobby is focused on that. He's focused on reorganizing the department. And that's what we should be talked about, not this distraction.
So I want to show you one more clip of Dr. Paul Offit, who recently got let go by RFK at the FDA in his advisory role. Here he is. He's going to admit to you that he knew that you should not recommend the COVID vaccine for healthy people, especially children. He knew this. He told Dr. Fauci this. Dr. Fauci said, yeah, I know that too, but we're going to lie anyway. You think I'm kidding? Let's watch this.
Meeting maybe a year ago or so, because I was already getting out there saying, I think we should target high-risk groups.
So he was saying we should just use the vaccine, which is very much like what was the declaration called? Anyway,
the Great Barrington Declaration.
The Great Barrington Declaration said that you should target vulnerable populations, elderly people with
protect the elderly and let everybody else go about their lives.
And so he's
never locked down.
So he's claiming that he was saying that also, but he wasn't saying it publicly. And so here, watch this.
Getting a lot of pushback from public health people who felt that I had gotten off the bus, because see, that was the whole feeling in this. You know, you're either on the bus or off the bus, and there was no in between. So I'd gotten I said, Tony, am I wrong? Am I wrong in making it? He said, no, you're right.
So he said to Anthony Fauci, am I wrong by saying we should only recommend the COVID vaccine for vulnerable people, the elderly and people with comorbidities? Am I wrong? He asked Dr. Fauci, am I wrong? And Dr. Fauci says, no, you're not wrong. But listen to the next part.
We should target high-risk groups. He said, the problem is, the minute you say that, it becomes a nuanced message. And a nuanced message is a garbled message. If you really want to make sure those groups get vaccinated, then you recommend it for everybody. And okay, so if we think that, we should say it. Because my personal thinking on this is, then if that's the reason we're vaccinating healthy 16-year-old boys, that's not a good reason. And just have it open. Say it openly. You know what I'm saying? Because I think people are smart enough to hear it.
So he's admitting there that what Dr. Fauci, the CDC, the FDA, they were all lying to people by saying that they should get the COVID vaccine when they knew they didn't need it. And he's admitting that they all lied, and he's admitting he went along with it. He went along with it because you have to either be on the bus or off the bus.
bus, and he always wants to be on the bus.
And so he wanted to be in the inner circle. He didn't want to be shut out because and so what would get him shut out? If he stood up loudly and told the truth about what he just said there. So if he was saying that in 2021, he would have got kicked out, and they would have called him fringe.
Anti-vaxxer.
And
he would have been an anti-vaxxer.
They would have called him an anti-vaxxer. So those are the kind of people they're firing over at the CDC. And I say bravo to President Trump and bravo to RFK Jr. for getting rid of these people who I would call pukes. I would call these people corrupt. I would call these garbage people. And there's no bigger garbage person than Paul Offit and Dr. Dimitri, who's still recommending a hepatitis B vaccine for babies, for newborn babies, when we already know if the mother has hepatitis or not. You test the mother, and then you'll know. And then you don't have to give that vaccine to that baby, but he's all for it because he's corrupt. I also have one more. There's some behind the scenes. There was a big pharma did a push to get rid of RFK that's been coming for months, and it's gotten revealed, and I'm going to show you that next. So over to Steph.
Okay, here we go. Jimmy Dore, you showed that Google Maps globe with all the 872 U.S. military bases around the world. Please show this again. It was more enlightening and depressing than the Buddha. And thank you for that. And that's from F. YouTube in Jisrael. All right, you're back. F. J.D. Vance, Trump's foil with a repeat what I say, yes, man. J.D. Vance, have you watched South Park recently? Thank you for that one, F. And F, you're back. Nick got bought out by AIPAC. Bet. J.B. Pritzker is a rich Jewish person. His wealth struggles to keep up with his size. By size, I mean McDonald's super size me kind of size. Continuing, JD versus JB isn't fair, but JB is up a few weight classes. My digs are just better at Shekel Master. That means F off and stop using my jokes. Jokes come from tragedy. Ask any man worth his salt. Back to Jimmy.
So Holden Collada did an interesting tweet thread about what's actually happening at the CDC and why they're coming for RFK Jr. right now. So there's senators, there's medical organizations, the media. They're all calling for RFK to be fired by President Trump or for him to resign, right? So there is a $2 million effort to get RFK Jr. Ousted. It's happening right in front of us. Leaked memo exposed the whole plan. Now it's happening, and Pharma is holding nothing back. CDC bureaucrats are subverting Kennedy. Senators are demanding his resignation. The vaccine industry is lobbying to get him fired, and it's all about to reach a fevered pitch. So so let's just watch. There is a concerted effort from Pharma to get RFK Jr. ousted. 2 months ago, a leaked memo exposed the plan. Former CDC directors, pharma, senators, public health experts, and the media just launched an all-out assault on Maha and RFK. In July, the Brownstone Institute exposed a leaked memo from Bio, the lobbying arm of Pfizer, Moderna, Merck, Eli Lilly, and Johnson & Johnson. The memo made their goal clear. It's time to go to the Hill and lobby that it's time for RFK Jr. to go. Why? Because RFK Jr. and Maha are a threat to the corrupt vaccine industry. Vaxcyte EVP COO Jim Wassel allegedly stated there is no opportunity to raise capital in the current environment. So they can't raise more money for vaccines and stuff like that in this current environment when they know they're going to have to be tested against a placebo. Investors are sitting on the sidelines for the next 6 to 9 months. Vaccine pathway to approval is unpredictable. And so here's part of the leaked memo. It says, here's the executive summary, key highlights, political landscape. Widespread concern over RFK Jr.'s anti-vaccine stance. Members view him as a direct threat to public health. Speculation about the Trump-RFK Jr. alliance with potential for breakdown over conflicting interests. Strategic voices and allies. Dr. Oz seems as a potential voice of reason on public health within the current administration, and Senator Cassidy emerging as an influential advocate for CDC. Okay, so there's that. So now let's go. Here's one more. 2025 vaccine strat. Here's the details from the meeting. Here's their 2025 vaccine strategy. Their goal, protecting continuity and viability of vaccine business. So what they're saying, continuity, meaning we don't want anything to change. We want to keep the 72 shots on the childhood vaccine schedule. And why? Because we want to do it because it's good vaccine business. Go down here. It says that's the goal. And number 5, impact of new HHS administration. It's time to go to the Hill and lobby that it's time for RFK Jr. to go. And one down here, it says no opportunity to raise capital in the current environment. So it's all about money. As we all know, that Pharma is all about money, and they don't care about your health or your safety. They're drug dealers. And everybody on the left that I consider myself a part of used to always be critical and skeptical and even adversarial to Big Pharma until COVID, and they got them to connect COVID with Donald Trump, and hatred of Trump meant that they had to love Big Pharma. And so now they do. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So Bio's leaked memo revealed that they set aside $2 million, half of its $4 million cash reserve, to stop RFK Jr. They plan to target legislators and influencers. The Brownstone Institute noted that the plan reveals a timeline racing towards September, and here we are in September. It's now September, and we're now seeing an all-out PR war from senators like Bernie Sanders, former CDC directors, and the media to try to and get RFK Jr. ousted from the Trump administration. So here's a little bit more from that. I'll just read this for you. It says the need a creative communication campaign targeting legislative and influencers. A campaign needs to both inspire and frighten potential outcomes. $2 million of Bio's $4 million cash reserve will be spent on vaccine programs. So that's what that's all about, and here we are. So on August 30th, Senator Bernie Sanders called for RFK Jr. to resign. His whole argument revolves around Kennedy's anti-vaccine views. He cited the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, and the World Health Organization to make its case. Every one of those organizations have been revealed during COVID to be corrupt. The WHO gets most of their money from Bill Gates, and they've self-admitted that they have to do whatever their biggest donors tell them to do. And we all know Bill Gates is not actually a philanthropist. He's a capital philanthropist wherever he can make money. And he's not a scientist. He's not even a college graduate, Bill Gates. But everybody turns to him for advice on vaccines. And here's one more. The American Academy of Pediatrics has received $50,000 from Pfizer, Moderna, Merck, and Sanofi, between $25K and $49K from Eli Lilly, and tens of thousands more from other pharma companies. The American Medical Association had received $1 million plus from Pfizer, between $500,000 and $999,000 from Merck, AstraZeneca, and Eli Lilly, between $250,000 and $500,000 from Novo Nordisk and CSK, and hundreds of thousands more from other pharma companies. The heart of RFK Jr. and Maha's argument against these expert public health organizations is that they're corrupted by Big Pharma, because they are corrupted by Big Pharma, which we've revealed on this show, and Dr. John Campbell has revealed, and Del Bigtree and many others have revealed over and over and over again, that everywhere from these medical organizations to the medical journals, especially to down to your local pharmacy, are corrupted by Big Pharma and pressure from government that are also bought by Big Pharma. Sanders has made no attempt to address these concerns. He's just regurgitating their talking points. Now, 9 former CDC directors just wrote an article slamming RFK Jr. for endangering every American's health. It's your typical appeal to authority. Despite the total collapse of trust in public health authorities since 2020, collectively, we spent more than 100 years working at the CDC, the world's preeminent public health agency, which nobody trusts anymore because they're all liars. And they lie to Congress on the regular. Guess what they held up as the shining example of success at the HHS and CDC? Operation Warp Speed. But as the American people have woken up to the truth, the COVID-19 shots are an unmitigated disaster that ruined countless lives. Even President Trump, who spent 5 years touting Operation Warp Speed as a brilliant success, is now listening to RFK Jr. and questioning the lies he was told by Pfizer and Moderna. Now, again, we have to let you know, because we're on YouTube, that the CDC currently says the vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine is safe and effective, and it doesn't stop transmission or contraction, which is what everybody wants a vaccine to do, but it doesn't. But they say the point of a vaccine now, since 2020, the point of a vaccine isn't to stop you from contracting a virus or from passing it on. The point of a vaccine is more of a therapeutic. It's to keep you out of the hospital or from getting seriously ill or dead. That's not what I thought vaccines did up until COVID, and that's why they had to literally change the dictionary definition of what a vaccine was. Used to be it created immunity from a virus. Now it creates an immune response, which are two totally different things. It's like my joke. Could you imagine if we all got the polio vaccine and in the same year we all got polio? And they're like, oh, no, it's not supposed to stop you from getting polio. It's just supposed to make it less. So that's the craziest thing ever. So did you know about this leaked memo? And did you know about tell me about it.
We know that a whistleblower leaked it to a scientist colleague of ours, James Lyons Weiler. And we know that BIO, the lobbying group, has not denied this. So we basically can see that it was true because we can see this coordinated attack right now. And they're trying hard. And fortunately, I'm certain that Bobby Kennedy's not going to resign. And Trump's tweet suggests that he's going to stand by Bobby. So I don't think it's going to work, but we have to recognize that they are fighting to preserve trillions of dollars, and that they truly do not care about health. They're not about health. They're about their profits.
So do you think that the American people, I mean, this is your lane. So, I mean, I'm out there meeting people when I do comedy shows. I travel across the country. I was just traveled across Canada. We were in Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. And of course, everywhere I go, people are angry about the COVID vaccine. They're angry about the mandates. They're angry about lockdowns that crashed and collapsed their businesses and their way of life. And they're upset about the harm to the people who are vaccine injured, and they're being ignored. So do you think that the American people are still falling for this? I mean, even I know the Democrats see it as I have to be on board for vaccines because Trump. They've really done a good PR job in making people, if you hate Trump, you should love vaccines. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the lockdowns and the measures were even harsher in Canada than they were here, Jimmy. So I'm not surprised that, everywhere you went, people were telling you that. But the American public is not listening to this advice. As Bobby Kennedy just published an op-ed, under 10% of parents are taking their kids to get the COVID shots. 2/3 of healthcare workers didn't go get the COVID boosters. People are moved on, but that's not enough. We actually have to show the lies that were told, and they were all lies. Everything during COVID really was based on a lie, and we've got to expose that, and we've got to get the mainstream media to acknowledge that, and we've got to get a consensus. Doesn't matter what your political party is. If we were harmed by medical interventions that the government stood beside and that people made vast profits on, that's got to be common knowledge. That's got to be accepted. That's got to be made part of the body politic. And frankly, I do think there's political repercussions for that, Jimmy. I mean, it has become a partisan issue. COVID and mandates and vaccines have become partisan. I think that's crazy. We're not a partisan organization at Children's Health Defense. We're for children's health and for the health of the country. But the reality is that these issues around conflicts of interest, corruption in pharma, mandates, autonomy over your health, they have become very partisan.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And here's the last thing I'd like to show you. Now, here's the current head of the FDA, Dr. Marty Makary, and who was scheduled to come on our show 2 weeks ago and canceled at the last minute because I don't know. But he's willing to go on these corporate news shows because I guess he's not afraid of getting challenged by them. But and I'm on board with the Maha. I'm on board with RFK. RFK had no trouble. Marty Makary sent me DMs asking to come on my show before he was the head of the FDA, when he had a book to sell. Now that he's the head of the FDA, he's too good for shows like us because we might ask him a question from the left. and he doesn't want those. He wants corporate misinformation. He can knock that down, but he can't knock down what I'm going to say. But anyway, here he is. He knocks down. Here's Elizabeth Vargas, and listen to this garbage.
But we should note that vaccine injury and, God forbid, vaccine deaths have been a very, very small minority of the hundreds of millions of people who've taken this vaccine.
Hundreds of thousands of Americans describe vaccine injury. 25% of clinicians know of somebody that's been significantly disabled or died from a vaccine. I know of 3 people who have died from the COVID vaccine, not personally, but through a physician or friend that has had a first-degree contact with someone who has had a vaccine complication. We know there's a risk of myocarditis in young, healthy men. That's 1 in 2,600 young boys. So, when people use these blanket terms, they're ignoring the very nuanced question in medical science, and that is, do the benefits outweigh the risks? That is the question. Not let's blindfold ourselves and insist that everybody take this. Look at the last administration, rubber stamping COVID boosters every year with no updated clinical trial. And we said we're not going to keep going down this road. We don't believe in COVID vaccine boosters forever unless we have evidence to support it. We're bringing back gold standard science and common sense.
So bravo to Marty Makary for doing that. It wasn't hard to knock that down because I don't doubt that she doesn't know anything about COVID. I don't think she knows anything, and she just reads what her producer has written and told her to say. And so just like Chris Cuomo, when he was hosting on CNN, he was repeating the same garbage about ivermectin and same garbage about the vaccine and lockdowns and masks. And then he got vaccine injured, and then he started getting treated with ivermectin from his doctor. And then he was like, "Oh, we were lied to about ivermectin," which is kind of late for a newsman to figure out 4 years after the fact. But anyway, there it is. So, and I just want to play this. I played this earlier in the show. I want to play it one more time. If you want to know the truth about the Pfizer vaccine for COVID, here's RFK to tell you.
We've never seen these kind of adverse reactions. They were predictable because if you look at the clinical trial data, even though they lied on the clinical trial data, Pfizer lied. We know that. There's no doubt about it. Maddie DeGarry is a good example. She was one of 1,100 children in the 11 to 15-year-old trial. So they're going to give this to 76 million children based on these tiny trials. And so any signal that you see in those trials, you have to assume is going to reverberate. You can extrapolate to the much larger group. Maddie DeGarry got a fever immediately after her vaccine, and she later gets seizures, and now she's in a wheelchair, apparently for life, and she's on a feeding tube. That's a fate worse than death, and it's to a cohort that has zero risk from dying of COVID. And if they give this to 76 million kids, they can expect that an injury like that will occur in 1 in every 1,100 kids. It's not guaranteed, but that's what Pfizer, when you do the clinical trial, that is how it works. You extrapolate any injury to the population as a whole. So that's 70,000 kids or something like that who could be injured in that terrible way. Kids who are at zero risk from COVID, plus the heart attacks we're seeing, the strokes we're seeing. The death rates from this vaccine there's been more deaths in 8 months than in all the billions of vaccines combined over the last 30 years. From this one vaccine, 17,000 recorded deaths in the United States. And we know the death rate is much, much higher than that. Probably 40 times. The best math, the best studies are showing that it's 40 times that. So, the risks from the vaccine they're completely untenable. If people knew the truth, they would not be taking this vaccine. And then the benefits of the vaccine are apparently zero or even sub-zero after 6 months. The British data is showing that the people who are vaccinated are actually more likely in many age categories to get COVID than people who are unvaccinated, which, by the way, was predicted. Now, we know that Pfizer knew this was going to happen because in their clinical trial, in the 6-month clinical trial, it was only 6 months. At the end of that period, 20 people died in the vaccine group and only 14 in the placebo group of all-cause mortality. There were 5 heart attacks in the vaccine group and only 1 in the placebo group. So your chance of dying of a heart attack from that vaccine, according to their own studies, is 500% greater than if you're unvaccinated. So they knew we were going to kill a lot of people, and they did it anyway. And people need to be able to see those studies and understand the deception, this criminal deception that has been imposed upon them.
And so, how do we get the corporate news? How do we get them? Even because they're funded by Big Pharma, which is why they lie about the vaccines. They lied about COVID, all things COVID, and they smear and slander anybody telling the truth about it. How do we get those? How can we what can we do? I just don't see it happening until corporate news starts to tell a little bit of the truth about COVID. People will still walk around ignorant of it and still sanctimonious and indignant while repeating propaganda from Big Pharma.
It's an issue. Kennedy's talked about, and Trump has talked about, ending direct-to-consumer prescription pharmaceutical drug advertising. That's what owns the media. Bobby Kennedy used to call it farm media. It's inseparable, right? They're totally intertwined. Interestingly, there are a couple bills in the Senate about ending direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical prescription drug advertising. We're one of 2 countries in the world that does this, Jimmy. So that would be huge to basically get the money for drugs out of the corporate media. It would be huge. I think a lot of people have that objective, including even some Democrats. So I think we have to watch that. That would make a huge difference. Until that happens, I agree with you. It's going to be very hard to do that. But, corporate media is dying. It's a dinosaur, Jimmy. I mean, independent media, your show, Children's Health Defense, a million other smaller venues. We've taken over the majority of people watching, the Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. These people are not on corporate media, but they have viewerships that are huge compared to what CNN and MSNBC have these days.
These are all, it's very positive when you see the head of the FDA gets to go on and smack down an empty-headed news host like that. So bravo to Marty McCarry. Bravo. I mean, it's just amazing to me that a news host doesn't have access to this information. RFK was saying this years ago. This wasn't
years ago.
Yeah.
That's several years. That's in Europe. Oracle is a British, and that's from CHD Europe. Yeah, that's from several years ago. And candidly, he doesn't talk quite like that now. Yeah, the mainstream is years and years behind. You're starting to see little cracks right now, Jimmy. They are covering that Trump tweet. They are starting to suggest there might be an issue, and they're years behind.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you taking time out to talk to us and talk to our audience. And what do you, it looks like Trump's going to stand by RFK Jr. They're not going to, I mean, they're coming with all the pressure that I've ever seen them come to try to get somebody.
The irony is, Jimmy, I think both for Bobby Kennedy and for Donald Trump, when they come after them, that's when they marshal all of their forces. So it's absolutely going to backfire. I think it's just going to bring Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump closer.
Fingers crossed that happens. This is the bright spot in the Trump administration. Not a lot of bright spots in the Trump administration, but this is definitely one of them. And a lot of people, this is what people voted for. So, this is what got me excited about RFK running in the first place. And the fact that he's now the head of the HHS is fantastic. And well, anyway, I just wanted to, I want to thank my guest, Mary Holland. She's the CEO of Children's Health Defense. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much, Jimmy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Mary. Jimmy, I think it's time to go to Rumble. How do you feel about that?
Okay, let's go to Rumble.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Rumble. I just put it there, and I'll pin it. No, somebody goes, please don't tell us what you're going to do next. I'm pinning it. I just pinned it. I'm going to cut and paste again. Cutting and pasting for your viewing entertainment.
Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to cover with her.
Oh, was that?
No.
You want to? Okay. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. And one more thing to refresh here. Refreshing. All right, we're going to see you at Rumble.